Sometimes I really do feel like Cassandra from the Iliad. You know, the woman who was cursed to see the future, to see all the horrors that this future has, but no one actually believes her or listens to her. Yeah, sometimes I am Cassandra. Because for years now, I have been watching our community defend books that have paper-thin characters or fantasy worlds that make absolutely no sense, and even books that are plagued with plot holes, and even romance books that where the two characters, the two main couple, has no sort of chemistry whatsoever, rather than the sexual tension that they apparently live through. And every single time someone points out these mistakes or someone tries to critique one of these amazingly loved books, they always receive the same answers. It's just not that deep, or let people enjoy things, or not everything is meant to be a literary masterpiece. And you're right, not everything is meant to be a literary masterpiece. But if we continuously support books that are poorly written, poorly edited, rushed to market, and focused on trends rather than storytelling, eventually the publishing industry will have these expectations when it comes to newly published books. And this is why there are so many people who are constantly DNFing books, or who constantly wonder why the books coming out today feel so mediocre. And it's because we are supporting mediocrity. Hello, my gorgeous viewers and readers. Welcome back, and welcome if you're new. I hope your weekend was filled with beautifully written novels, dramatic Goodreads review, and the slightly concerning feeling that the books coming out today would not survive an editing pass. Lately, I've been seeing a trend all over the book community on BookTok, booktube, and bookstagram, where people ask what was the pettiest reason you've ever DNF'd a book. And honestly, some of the answers were hilarious. Like a love interest having the same name as your ex, or a really ugly cover, or one character drinking cow's milk. Honestly, I was chuckling for hours. But what fascinated me about this topic wasn't the petty reasons. It was the perfectly reasonable reasons that people thought were petty, like examples of huge plot holes, or really poor world building, or even romance that makes no sense. They were still treated as if they were petty or they were unreasonable. It almost feels as if wanting coherent storytelling has actually become snobbish. And that is the thing that genuinely terrifies me. Because whilst there are many contemporary books that have been published nowadays, or in the last 2 years, that are incredible and that have incredible quality, we have seen a growing tension amongst readers, or between readers and publishers, because it seems as if the books that get the most quality right now are not necessarily the ones that have the most quality. It feels as if the books that we see over and over again within the book community are books that are meant to be fast, that are meant to be engaging, and that are meant to be discarded once you finish them. The question that inspired me to make this video is deceptively simple. Are some books actually bad, or is it just a matter of taste? And whenever I try to bring some criticism into these books, or I try to bring out this conversation, someone always responds, art is subjective. And in some way, that is true. Because whether you enjoy a book or not is entirely subjective, but whether this book has successfully accomplished what it is set out to do is a completely different story. You can enjoy badly written books. God knows I have. You can also dislike books that are considered masterpieces. I have done that as well. But the thing here is that taste does not always equal quality. And this is the thing that many people within the book community are struggling to understand. One thing that I want to make clear before we start this conversation is that I do not believe that we are in a cultural dark age. There are extraordinary creators that are making true masterpieces, like Ryan Coogler with Sinners, or Robert Eggers with Nosferatu. And even within the big community, we have incredibly talented creators like Liu Cixin, literally bringing back to life the dark science fiction genre and also cosmic horror. This is not the issue here. Is not that we don't have enough creators that are talented or that are extraordinary. The problem here is visibility. Research in educational psychology is constantly showing worry about the declining rates of the reading habits and also the increased rates of social media use amongst younger generations. So, younger millennials, all Gen Z, and all Gen Alpha generations are constantly consuming more social media than they are actually reading. That is something that we see in research. Many of these studies also show how constant digital stimulation is actually affecting your brain. Not only it is affecting your memory or your attention span, but also your information retention and also your desire to consume something deeper. So in this sense, constantly being stimulated by social media, what it is making to your brain is making it go onto overdrive. It's constantly working in hyperactivity mode. So you're constantly looking for the next serotonin boost, the next video to watch, the next thing that makes you feel like you're watching something unique. So when your brain is used to consume hundreds of pieces of content per day, obviously trying to consume something in a slower form can make your brain really uncomfortable, especially if it has a slower form of reward. And that doesn't necessarily mean that this lower form of reward is bad or that is worse than the content that you consume on social media. It just means that it's more demanding and that you have to put more effort, or your brain has to put more effort into actually getting this reward. So at the end of the day, when you're used to something that is so immediate, actually reading a book or actually reading something that is difficult or that you view as difficult feels so tedious, feels so boring. One of the most interesting takes that I have seen about this topic comes from Melissa. She is an incredible content creator. I absolutely adore her. Please go follow her. But she mentions that she thinks that readers approach books in the same way they approach social media. They want the immediate gratification and they also want the immediate engagement. They want to love a book from the get-go. And the thing here is that the publishing industry has adapted accordingly, because we see many contemporary books following the same structure. Short chapters, simple prose, constant stimulation and engagement, and the same structures. And that doesn't necessarily make a book bad, but also it creates incentives. If readers are constantly rewarding fast consumption, then publishers will naturally seek books that can be consumed quickly. Because at the end of the day, publishers are businesses, and businesses only respond to consumer demands. But here is where things become really interesting, because publishers are not creating these books in a vacuum. They are actually responding to demand. Because when a book becomes so popular, like Aquata, publishers or the rest of the publishing companies, what they will try to do is find the next or the new Aquata. That is why we had a boom of Aquata-like books. Or when hockey romance becomes popular, then suddenly we have tons and tons of books about hockey romance. And even with dark academia, these are just some of the many examples that we see in the industry. Because at the end of the day, the publishing industry, what they are doing is responding to demands. And this is why the industry is now moving through replication rather than originality or innovation, because the consumer is demanding replication. Now, imagine that you are a writer, that you have written something that is truly original and unusual. The chances of you having a publisher take a risk on your novel rather than something that is highly trendy is none to zero. And this is because consumers are constantly rewarding things that are highly popular and highly trendy. And the issue here isn't the fact that these popular books exist. I have no qualms with that at all. The problem is that we are equating popularity with quality. Something that is popular doesn't necessarily mean that it is of good quality, or something that is of good quality doesn't mean that it is popular. We cannot equate those two things. They are two different traits. When you connect all these pieces together, something quite worrying begins to emerge. Readers are constantly looking for things that are highly consumable, that are really easily accessible, and things that are entertaining. So, algorithms, what they do is reward things that are highly engaging. So, then publishing industries or publishing houses just create and adapt the same highly marketable content, things that are easy to digest and things that are incredibly engaging. And authors cannot do anything but adapt to these expectations, which means that the cycle is constantly being reinforced. And the result of this is not worse books, but safer books, books that are designed not to experiment, or books that are meant to lower the risk of failure as much as they can, or books that are just meant to be consumed fast and easy and then just forgotten until the next trend appears. And that is what scares me. I'm not saying all of this because I hate light romance or I hate fantasy or I am a snobby person who wants to feel better than everyone else. I'm saying all of this because I genuinely believe that literature is so much more than something that can be consumed. Books can change us, they can challenge us, they can make us feel more complicated. And this is the thing, when we are just looking for things or looking for books that make us feel immediately comfortable, we are at risk of losing that richness, of losing that thing that makes us complicated. I want to end this video with an important clarification. I am not here to judge what you read. Read your hockey romances or your really smutty romantasy or any of your novels that are vampire boyfriend related or your werewolf omegaverse novels. Read whatever the fuck you want. Life is difficult enough already, but I do think we should be mindful with what we support, because every purchase, every recommendation, everything you like within the book community is actually giving publishers information. So if we want a healthier, more diverse literary landscape, we also need to be consuming things that are original, that are unusual, and that are not extremely popular. Not because we want to feel morally superior to others or because we are snobby and we are different, but because we want to truly support the community. Not only the small authors that wouldn't have a chance otherwise, but also because we want to bring diversity and originality into the community. So the true question here isn't whether some books are good or bad. The question here is whether we are creating a culture or an environment that supports a good book when they appear. That's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure that you like and subscribe to my channel. And before you go, I want to ask you the question that prompted me to make this video. What is the pettiest reason for you to DNF a book? So for me, it was From Blood and Ash, actually. And I remember I was 20-30 pages in, where the main character is supposed to be a virgin because she is like an oracle-like kind of character, and she is meant to keep her virginity forever. And then 30 pages in, she starts being fingered by a guy, and I was just so shook and so disgusted that I had to immediately DNF. Like, I literally closed the book and donated the book. That's how bad it was. Moving on from that incredibly traumatizing scene, yeah, just let me know what are the things that made you DNF a book, and just let me know. I want to share your grief with you guys. But yeah, again, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more content about this topic or any big commentaries, please make sure that you follow me on my social media. I post that every day and I post extra content. So yeah, make sure that you don't miss anything. But yeah, again, thank you so much for watching. I will see you soon and have a great rest of your week. Bye, guys.